I should probably start recording, huh? So, so I want everything on the same side, the equal sign. And then what I'm going to do is the quadratic formula says this. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay? So that's the quadratic formula. Where the heck do I get the a, b's, and c's at is the question, right? So where does a, b, and c come from? Well, in my standard form, if you look up here in my standard form, here's a. A is the number with x squared. B is the number with x. And c is the number with no variable. Okay? Is there any questions on that? So I take roll here really quick. Walker and Jasmine. Does anybody have any questions on those, where we're getting A, B, and C at? I'm just pulling them out of the equation from, once everything's on the same side, the equal sign, I'm just pulling it right out of the, right out of my problem. So we're going to start with number 1, I guess, since it's up there. And I want to get everything on the same side, the equal sign, right? So I'm going to subtract. How do I move the 20 to the other side of the equal sign?
Negative 20?
Yeah, I'm going to subtract 20. I'm going to do the opposite, right? Oh, sorry. I'm still on highlighter. Didn't realize that. Let me go to pen here. So subtract 20 on both sides. So I get 10p squared minus 20 equals 0. Okay? Morning, Christian. Okay. So now I want to identify A, B, and C. So before I plug it into my quadratic formula, which you see out there, I want to know what A, B, and C are. Okay? So what is A equal? What does A equal?
A equals 20?
Nope, A, remember. So if we look up here at my definition up here, right? A is the number with x squared. So so I don't have an x squared, I have a p squared. So what's the number with p squared? 10. So it's just going to be the number only. So it's just going to be 10, okay? And then B is the number with, if you look, B is the number with the x by itself. So do we have a p by itself?
No.
So what number would that be? 0, yeah, good. And then C is the number with no variable at all, so negative 20. Excellent. Okay, is there any questions so far? Okay, we're good. So now all I'm going to take is I'm going to take A, B, and C here. So I'm going to take my numbers here, A, B, and C, and I'm going to substitute those into my formula. So wherever there's a B, I'm going to put 0. And wherever there's an A, I'm going to put 10. And wherever there's a C, I'm going to put negative 20. Are we okay with that so far? So I've got X equals minus 0, because it says minus B, right? Plus or minus the square root of B squared, so that's 0 squared, minus 4 times A is 10, times C is negative 20, all divided by 2 times A. Well, A is 10. Are we okay so far? Oh, I should put another parenthesis there. 10. Yeah? Questions so far? Anybody online? Okay. Probably should have given myself a little bit more room, but, hey, we'll struggle along here. So then that means, what's negative 0? Do I have to write negative 0? No. So I'm going to start with plus or minus, and then we're going to fix what's inside the square root here. So 0 squared is? Anybody? 0 squared? 0, right. So 0 squared is 0. Do I have to write 0 down? No. No. So then I'm going to do negative 4 times 10 times negative 20. So 40 times 20, 800. The square root of 800. divided by 20. I'm going to make my square root a little shorter. Okay. So now, the first thing I do is I try and figure out what the square root of 800 is. Right? Don't know what the square root of 800 is because it's some decimal. And right now, we're not putting in, we're going to, well, actually, we are going to put it in decimal because your homework, if it doesn't come out a whole number, we're going to find a decimal. So if you're on your phone.
28.28427.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Thanks. I don't know why my phone won't turn.
Miss Campbell?
Yes, honey?
Do you have a water bottle that I can have?
I don't I have, yeah, right over here, honey. You have to go fill it with water, though. Okay, so.
Can I go right now or do you want me?
Yeah, no, go ahead. I don't know why my phone doesn't want to turn. Oh, let's just use Desmos. You've already got it figured out. So square root 800. I'm going to try and do it all together, though. So this gives me 2 different answers. So I've got the square root of 800 divided by 20 and negative square root of 800 divided by 20, right? It's just basically the same thing. So I can say plus or minus divided by 20 should be 1.414. We're going to go to 3 decimal places. 414. Is that okay? Get Ziri and Jonathan. Get Ziri. Jonathan, did you get your hair cut? Oh, it's not Jonathan. Name?
Mauricio.
Mauricio? Hi, honey.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, there's notes right over there on the table if you would like to grab them. Okay. So questions on that? Was that too bad? Wasn't too bad, right? So we're just going to do that over and over again. So let's try the second one. Is the first thing we need to know is everything on the same side, the equal sign? No, right? So I need to move it. How am I going to move the 12x to the other side, the equal sign? Subtract 12x. Good. Oh, wow. So many people are coming to class today. This is so good.
This is probably the first and last time.
I don't know. It always seems that after I'm sick, a lot of people come to class. So, hey. So 2x squared minus 12x minus 80 equals 0. So now we want to identify A, B, and C, right? I always want to find out what that equals. So what is A?
2x squared.
Just the number. So we just need the number, 2. B is?
Negative 12.
-12. Excellent. And C is?
80.
Close. -80. Okay, don't forget the negative signs. Because the negative signs will be a big deal once we get into when we're multiplying, right? So x, now we're going to substitute it in. I guess I should slide down so you can see the quadratic formula there. Now I'm going to substitute it into the quadratic formula, right? So I have minus b, so it's minus a -12. Yeah, I have to have them both there for the first step, okay? And then I'm going to say plus or minus the square root of -12 squared minus 4 times a is 2, times times c, which is -80. Get over there. All divided by 2 times a, which is 2. Whew. Okay, so now now that it's all plugged into the quadratic formula, now I'm going to start simplifying it, making it look a little better. So what's minus a minus?
Positive.
+12, great. So that's 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared. Anybody can tell me what 12 squared is? Either at home or here, I don't care. Just tell me what 12 squared is.
104
close.
147.
Other way.
145.
144. 144. And then we're going to multiply, let's see, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 8 times 80, negative 80. 8 times 8 is 64. So plus 640, all divided by 4. And I'm going to simplify that again. So I've got 12 plus or minus the square root of 640 plus 144, 784. Is that right? Did I do that in my head right? 144 plus 64. Oh, that is not a plus. 640. Yes, 784. Woohoo! Whoop, whoop. Okay, so now it's a big square root, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is try and find out what the square root of 784 is. And my stupid calculator's not working in my phone, so let's go to Desmos. Square root 784. Oh, it's 28. Beautiful. So that's 12 plus or minus 28 divided by 4. Okay, so the square root of 784 is 28. That made it nice, right? So now now I have two separate equations. I've got 12 plus 28 divided by 4, and I have 12 minus 28 divided by 4. So now I'm going to figure out what that is. So 12 plus 28 is 40, divided by 4 is 10, and 12 minus 28 is negative 16, divided by 4 is negative 4. So my answers are 10 and negative 4. Questions? It's kind of a lot of work, right? But it's not that hard. It's just order of operations, right? So add, subtract, multiply, divide. That's it. That's all we're doing. Okay. I'll wait till people have this done writing. I can make it bigger if you need me to, because I know it's a little small here in class. Is that better? Okay, we're going to do another 2 together, and then you guys are going to work on some on your own, and we'll see how that goes. And then I think you have 6 homework problems. Only 6, right? It's not too bad. It's less than what I normally give you.
True. You probably give about the same, right? Almost the same.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. I'm going to write down the quadratic formula since it's already disappeared. So it's minus b. X is going to equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? So there's my quadratic formula. And we're on number 3 here. So what do I need to do first?
Positive 7 both sides.
Right, I need to add that 7x to both sides. Good. Because remember, everything has to be on the same side of the equal sign. So I've got 2x squared plus 7x plus 7 equals 0. Oh, Jonathan didn't come to school today. All right. Okay. So what does a equal?
A equals 2x squared.
A equals 2.
Oh, yeah.
B equals?
7.
And C equals?
Negative 7?
No.
Oh, 7.
7. Good.
We switched this.
Yep, good. And Maria's here. Maria.
Miss Campbell?
Yeah, honey.
Wait, did my audio work right there?
What?
Oh, sorry, my audio was freaking out the entire class and I was trying to speak. It wasn't working though. I had a question. So, if we get like spring breakers or anything, I have to go get my sister at East. Because she's, I don't know, having issues with something. But like, I'm going to stay in the Zoom call. I just won't be like responsive for like 10 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Walker.
So you know. All right.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. Just stay in as long as the internet will let you, okay? Okay, so now we're just going to plug it in, right? Just like what we've been doing. So I've got minus, x is going to equal minus b. Oh, I don't want to put b. I actually want to put what b is. Sorry. Minus 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 7, all divided by 2 times 2. Beautiful. Oh, I probably shouldn't have done this problem. I didn't check this problem out. Oh, well, we're going to do it. So it's going to equal negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus, what's 14 times 7? Hi, Annie. Okay. So let's see, there's a, that one's taken to Alakai sits there. So there's one at the back table behind Maria. Marie, there's a seat at one of the seats behind her, or be this one up here. It's the only ones that hasn't had somebody sitting at it yet. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Yale. Minus 98. Oh, this is going to be ugly. Sorry, I tried not to get negatives underneath the square root. That's okay, Jonathan. Thank you. I'm glad you're here anyways. And all over 4. So this is going to give us, yeah, let's just go ahead. Negative 7 plus or minus the square root. It should be negative 49 divided by 4. And that's the furthest we can go because there's no such thing as the square root of a negative number. If you put it into your calculator, it'll say error or undefined or something, okay? But it will not let you do a negative square root. And all the other problems I picked out, but I didn't check the ones that were already in the program. So in the notes. So I'm sorry about that. I should have checked those, but I was in a hurry this morning. Sorry. So we got one. So if you get any with a negative square root, in your homework there won't be any, by the way. There'll be none with negative square roots, okay? So this is just, but at least you're going to see it because you might get some on the test at the end of the year. The Aspire, that's what it's called. I don't know why I can't ever remember what it's called. And this one's going to be good too. So do I have to do anything to this one? Everything's on the same side, the equal sign, right? So now all I'm going to do is identify A, B, and C and plug it into the quadratic formula. So what is A equal? 5. What is B equal?
8.
And what does C equal?
Negative 17.
-17. Very good. So now I'm just going to plug it into the quadratic formula. And I'm just going to write that out again since we had a couple new people join us. So that's going to say x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay? So I'm just going to take my a, b, and c and plug it into there. Honey, if you want, there's notes right up there on the front table. So I've got x is going to equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 8 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is negative 17, all divided by 2 times a, which is 5. Okay, now that we've got everything plugged in, we're just going to multiply everything out, okay? So I've got negative 8 plus or minus the square root. 8 squared is 64. And a negative times a negative is a positive. And 20 times 17 is, I don't know. 20 times 7, 340. Divided by 10. And let's make that a little bit shorter here. Equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 340 plus 64 is 404 divided by 10. And I don't know if the square root of 404, we might have to turn that into a decimal. Square root 404. Oh, yeah, okay. So then what I'm going to do in my calculator, right, x is going to equal negative 8 plus the square root of 404 divided by 10, and negative 8 minus the square root of 404 divided by 10. So in my calculator, I'm going to do it that way, okay? So when you're putting it into Desmos, I should probably have that up here so you guys can see it. And I learned that you can split the screen, but I still haven't learned how to do that yet here so you guys can see it. So let's share the graphing calculator. Okay, so now I have the graphing calculator up here, right? And so how I'm going to put that problem in here is I'm going to say minus 8, negative 8. Oh, I should probably put parentheses around it since I'm going to divide. So negative 8 plus the square root of 404, parenthesis, oh, arrow out, parenthesis, divided by 10? 10. And there's one of my answers. One of my answers is 1.21. Okay? And then the second answer, I'm going to put in the bottom down here again, be the same thing, except it's going to be negative 8 minus the square root of 404. Arrow out, and then put my parenthesis, divided by 10. And that's negative 2.81. Okay, questions? See how I put that in the calculator or into Desmos? Make sure that it's done, and you're not just dividing the 10 by the square root, but it's divided by everything. Okay, questions on that? Okay, let me stop sharing this and go back to sharing. Let me move this out of the way. And then go back to sharing here. Okay, so then what you guys are going to go ahead and do to the next page, I'm going to go ahead and write the quadratic formula out here again. And I want you to do at least the first 4 problems here. We're going to write it out here. So x is going to equal minus b, and I need more room to write that. X is going to equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Okay, go ahead and try that. Oh, admit. Okay, participants, chat. Make you guys bigger, and then I'm going to figure out what these answers. So what is A? What is A? What's the number with X? 1. Yes, good. What's B? And what's C? Negative 80. And then I'm just going to plug it into my, I'm going to make this up, I'll blow this up so you guys can see it. Okay, so I'm just going to plug it in, right? So I've got x is going to equal minus a negative 11 plus or minus the square root of negative 11 squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 80, all divided by 2 times A, which is 1. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify it. So I've got minus a minus is positive, so it's going to be 11. Plus or minus the square root of negative 11 squared is 121. And negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times negative 80 is 320, so plus 320 divided by 2. Then we've got 11 plus or minus the square root of 441 divided by 2. And that's going to equal 11 plus or minus the square root of 441 is 21. Okay? So 21 divided by 2. So if you put that in your calculator, you'll get a perfect square. And I'm going to divide it by 2. And then I have two separate problems. I have 11 plus 21 divided by 2. And I have 11 minus 21 divided by 2, which is going to give me 11 plus 21 is 32 divided by 2 is 16. And 11 minus 21 is negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So there's my answers. Please make sure your mask is on all the way. Thank you. Okay. And then same thing for B. We don't have to solve for it. It's already got everything on one side. So I'm just going to find out what A, B, and C are. So A is, B is, and C is negative 12. I plug it into my quadratic formula. And I've got, let's see, x is going to equal minus a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 12, all divided by 2 times a, which is 4. And then I'm going to start simplifying that down. So minus a minus 8 is positive 8, plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared is 64. And a minus times a minus is a plus. So 16 times 12, 192, all divisible by 8. And that gives me 8 plus or minus the square root of 256 divided by 8. And that gives me 8 plus or minus the square root of, oh, no, not square root. The square root of 256 is 16. So if you just put that into your calculator, you'll be able to figure that out. And then I get 8 plus 16 divided by 8, and 8 minus 16 divided by 8. And if I do 8 plus 16, that's 24 divided by 8 equals 3. And 8 minus 16 is negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1.
Too much work.
It is a lot of work, but you get the answer right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. I can do this. I don't have to factor I don't have to factor. I don't have to complete the square. I can always do this and get the right answer. It doesn't matter. Okay? So I don't have to do anything funky to do this. I can just do the quadratic formula every single time and get it right. Some people just like doing the quadratic formula. Some people are like, I'd rather factor if I can. I'd rather do the simpler ways if I can. But sometimes that's too many ways to remember to solve. Quadratic formula, if you can remember one way to solve a quadratic, it'll get it right every single time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why some people, oh, sorry. I'm trying to get it to work on my iPad and the screen in here. So that's why the quadratic formula people like it, because there's just one way, and even though sometimes it's a little long, you can get the same thing right. And you guys, sometimes when I'm doing it myself, I don't write it out this long every single time, but I need to show you guys all the steps, right? So once you get used to doing it, you can cut out the steps that you don't need to do. Does that make sense? So A for number C, A is, everything's on the same side of the equal sign. So A is 6, B is -2, and C is -140. So X is going to equal minus a -2 plus or minus the square root of -2 squared minus 4 times 6 times -140. Okay. All divided by 2 times 6. Okay. So then I get 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 3,060 divided by 12, which gives me 2 plus or minus 58 divided by 12. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, sorry. I skipped C. I skipped that step. Would give me 2 plus or minus the square root of 3,364. And then I put the square root of 3,364 in my calculator or into Desmos, and it gave me 2 plus or minus 58 divided by 12. So the square root of 3,364 is 58. And then that gives me 2 plus 58 divided by 12 and 2 minus 58 divided by 12. So just so you know, Ketlin, I would never write this step right out here, these two problems out here. I would just do it from here. 2 plus 58 divided by 12 gives me what? And the 2 minus 58 divided by 12 gives me what? And just write my answer down. Does that make sense? So some of this I'm writing extra so people can see what we're seeing. Does that make sense? So once you get used to it, you don't always have to write everything out. 2 plus 58 is 60, and 60 divided by 12, I think, is 5. Yeah, that's right. And then this one's a little harder. So the next one is, I'm going to come over here, is -56 divided by 12. Well, 12 doesn't go into 56. So I said, well, what goes into 12? I tried 6 first. I took 56 and divided by 6. It didn't go into there. So I did 4, and 4 goes into, so I divided by 4, because I know 4 goes into 12, and that equaled 14 here and 3 here. So my answer was -14 thirds. So basically, I just simplified my fraction. Yeah? And that's it. I knew at least 2 would go into it, by the way, because they were both even numbers, right? It was a 56 and a 12. So I knew at least 2 would go into it. Was hoping a bigger number would go into it. And it did. Okay. And then you guys can't really see the green in here, so I'm not using green today. So this one, I need to get everything on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to subtract 18 and add x. Subtract 18. So I've got 8x squared plus x minus 18 equals 0. Then a is 8. B is 1, because I have 1x. There's no number with the x, so it's always 1. And C equals -18. And again, I'm going to plug it into my quadratic formula. So x is going to equal -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 8, times c, which is -18, all divided by 2 times a, which is 8. So I get -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 plus 576 divided by 16, which equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 577 divided by 16. And surprise, surprise, 577 is not a perfect square. So in my calculator, I put -1 plus the square root of 577 divided by 16, and -1 minus the square root of 577 divided by 16. And I got my answers. And you only need, remember I said to round to 2 decimal places. So I've got 1.44 and -1.56. So you don't have to write down. And if you're in Desmos, it'll tell you how many places to round to. I think it's either the 10th, which is 1 decimal place, or 100th, which is 2 decimal places. And sometimes it flips back and forth, so make sure you're reading, because if you put 2 decimals and they only want 1, they'll mark it wrong. Okay, so make sure you're reading how many decimals they want in Desmos. So, okay, we've got 2 more problems to do. So you guys go ahead and work on those 2 problems. Homework. Just go ahead and work on this. And then when we're done, you'll have about 20 minutes to work on homework, which should be good. Remember, tomorrow's midterms, so you should be getting some work done and in. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 19, so everything's on the same side, the equal sign. And A is 12, B is 3, and C is -19. And then I plug it in. I've got X is going to equal, let's see, X is going to equal -3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times A, which is 12, times C, which is -19, divided by 2 times A, which is 12. So I've got -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 912. So 4 times 12 times 19 is 912, divided by 24, which means I have the wrong answer, so I have to plug them in again. I've got -3 plus or minus the square root of 921, which is not a perfect square. So that means I've got -3 plus the square root of 921 divided by 24, and -3 minus the square root of 921 divided by 24. For some reason, I divided by 36. Let's go back into Desmos here. I should just be able to find those ones and fix the problem. 24. So the first one should be 1.14. And then the second one, 24, should be -1.39. Okay. So those are my answers right there. Yeah. Okay. So for the second one, I still need to get everything on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to add 11x and subtract 20. So I've got 3x squared plus 11x minus 20 equals 0. So A equals 3, B equals 11, and C equals -20. Wow, okay. I don't know what I was doing with quadratic, but I kept doing the wrong thing today on these 2 problems. Okay, so x is going to equal -11 plus or minus the square root of 11 squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2 times A. Okay. which is negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 121, 11 squared, and then 4 times 3 times 20, negative 4 times negative 20 is a positive, so positive 240 all divided by 6 equals negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 361 divided by 6, which equals negative 11 plus or minus 19 divided by 6. So that is going to give us, what is that going to give me? Negative 11 plus 19 divided by 6, and negative 11 minus 19 divided by 6, which should be, let's see, that should be 8 divided by 6. So they're both divisible by 2, so that should be 4/3. And this should be negative 30 divided by 6, so that should be negative 5. Okay, so those are the answers there. Questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay, so what you're going to do for